What is going on, everybody? Vype Locker Talk live, rolling on another week, another edition. Joshua Cook along with Scotty T, special guest sitting in the chair.
What's going on,
This
party
week.
people?
Was that a song? I think that was a song lyric, right? I feel like that
If
was.
not, I can take full credit for it.
I feel like
Yeah.
you could take full credit for it.
Yeah, credit to me.
So we are rolling along. The 2020/2021 Texas high school football season is officially now over as we sit here on January 19th. Katy wins its 9th state championship. Count them up.
Count 'em.
9 for the Katy Tigers, 8 for Gary Joseph, by the way. 3 of those as coordinator, 5 of those as head coach of the Katy Tigers. Katy just absolutely takes care of business. I mean, here's the thing. None of these state games were close. None of them were close. Denton
sure
Ryan blew out Cedar Park 59-14. Alito took care of Crosby 56-21. Westlake took care of South Lake Carroll. Dad beat up on Son 52-34. Boy,
Yeah, Dad was like, "Hey,
it's
son,
the Vype watch along curse."
the Vype watch along curse." That's
it might
right.
be.
We did the Vype watch along on our YouTube channel.
Yep.
All weekend. Josh was there with Matt Malatesta
Yep.
for the first game with Fort Bill Marshall head coach James Williams and
Mhm.
Foster head coach Sean McDowell, which was awesome. And we didn't scare them off because they came back again for the afternoon game, for the Katy game on Saturday. We had a blast just talking shop. Those guys are just a wealth of football knowledge, and we had a really good time. And then for the nightcap games, it was myself and David Francis, and none of them were close. Hence, we call it the curse, the Vype watch along curse.
I mean,
And I think it's real.
I don't. I mean, is it like the Madden curse? Are we at that level? Like,
Well, look,
the guys on the Madden cover, they get like hurt the next year. Like, okay, if like we're watching your game, one of the teams is going to blow out the other team. Is that just what's going to happen?
Well, it's funny. Coach Sean McDowell was like, "Hey, if we make it to state next year, you're not allowed to watch our game."
You're not allowed.
That's
You
what he
are no.
And so we said, "Coach, instead of the watch along, you just give us field passes instead." He said, "Done."
That's
So-
true. That's true. We could just be at the game.
Correct.
So
But it was a great weekend of Texas high school football, I would say. It really was almost like a celebration because it was such a long road getting to that point.
Mhm.
It was a celebration. Yes, we wish the games were a little bit closer, but the best team won in every single game, hence the blowouts. And
Yeah,
that's what
so-
you want.
So Alito wins title number 10. They stand atop the mountain of Texas high school football as the winningest 11-man program. Literally, the head coach, he literally has a ring for every finger now. All 10. All 10
That's
fingers.
10 state championships since 1998.
That's ridiculous.
This also marked the 100th year of UIL Texas High School State Championship football. You've won 10 of them in the last 21 years, if my math's correct.
Yeah.
Or my math stinks. 23 years.
23 years, yeah.
Or 22, whatever it is. That's like recent history. It's not like you're going back to World War
No.
II for this stuff. So
No.
that's so impressive.
Yeah, it's been an impressive run by Alito. We'll be joined by Stephen Peters here in a little bit to give us the full breakdown of everything. He was at all 4 games in Arlington. There's big play after big play. There was big runs. There was big moments in these games. The biggest moment came in the Austin Westlake game.
Yes.
Right, because Austin Westlake, first off, they win back-to-back state championships. They win Division II last year. They win Division I this year. Hands down, one of the best teams I've seen in person this season as far as like physicality, everything. And then there's this guy named Michael Taft, right? He ends up being the state defensive MVP. He also had the number 1 play on SportsCenter the other morning.
So cool.
Number 1 in the country, a one-handed interception. And when this play happened, because we had to watch along, like the people at home couldn't see the game, but if they had it like tuned up, like timed up right, where the play happened, and then I'll just say, here was the reaction to Michael Taft, a Rice commit, by the way, his interception in the state championship game during our watch along.
So push themselves back. They're in a 2nd and long situation, still inside their own 15-yard line. Little stunt.
That's his second
With
already.
interception number.
That Scotty T nearly came out of his chair.
I did.
He
I was like,
was like holding on, like, oh my! Like, I guarantee you that was everyone's reaction to the press box too.
it was so
Especially when it
cool.
got replayed up on the big board. Heading to Rice University, what a get for the Rice Owls!
Man, I'll
Michael
tell you
Taft.
what. And the defensive MVP for the Katy game,
Yep.
he's also a Rice commit, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're the Rice Owls,
You feeling good about that
feeling
defense?
pretty good about
Yeah,
yourself
he had
right now.
he had a pick six. He went full JJ Watt.
So I'm
on
curious,
that.
which game, Josh, were you surprised was a blowout? Was it the 6A D1 game, or is it the 5A D1 game? Denton Ryan putting it on Cedar Park. Which game surprised you the most?
I think Den Rhyme putting it on Cedar Park as bad as it was. I thought Cedar Park's offense, Ryder Hernandez, finished as one of the top passers in the state of Texas, over 4,000 yards passing, 60 touchdowns.
Great season
on the year. So that was a little surprised that they were held to 14. That just tells you how good Den Ryan's defense is.
Yes.
I mean, that tells you how well they play defense. Alito, Crosby was a great story getting there. We loved following the Cougars all the way to state. We just knew Alito was going to wear them down at some point, and it happened. Alito kind of pulled away. Katy beating Cedar Hill as bad as they did, that was I think that was more of a statement, because
yes.
here's the thing about Katy football. They hadn't won a state title since 2015, and people feel like, oh, that's an eternity for Katy football, which it is. It's a long time.
Yes.
And, of course, they've been beat by North Shore. They've been in the D1 bracket. They go the D2 route this year. And
they steamrolled everybody in the D2 rounds.
I mean, when they beat up Buda Hayes the way they did in the state semis, I'm like, they got it.
Or Shadow Creek even, a game or two beforehand.
Yeah, 2 games
they
before
doubled
that.
up on Shadow Creek. It was a very impressive run by Katy.
It's an impressive run by the Katy Tigers to win number 9. And the thing about this team is they're really young.
Yeah.
Like, this is when you start looking, and we'll talk about this as favorites go in next year. But I mean, Seth Davis, your offensive MVP, 124 yards rushing, a touchdown. He's only a sophomore. Your kicker, who kicked a 48-yard field goals last
so cool,
is only a sophomore. I think he was a yard off of setting like the record for state. So
I mean, that defense was so great, holding Caden Salter to 112 yards passing. A guy who's that dynamic, a Tennessee commit.
No touchdowns.
I think he had a rushing touchdown, maybe 2 rushing touchdowns. At that point, the game was out of hand. And that defense really stepped up. Now, I didn't realize Cedar Hill had some of the injuries that they had. So I think that made kind of a difference. But at the end of the day, it really didn't matter because Katy was Katy.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, Katy, I think Katy, and I'm going to probably write about this week, is I think this is one of their most impressive state championships they've ever won. I'm not talking statistics. No, there's probably some Katy fan out there going, well, 2015, they only gave up 62 points throughout the 16-game season.
Which is crazy.
I'm not talking statistically, because I know statistically that 2015 defense will never be stood up against. I'm saying what Katy had to go through. You change your quarterback early in the season from a senior veteran to a sophomore quarterback.
Yep.
In a tough 19-6A district. Then you have a senior running back in Jalen Davis. You have Brandon Campbell, who came over. Well, he decides to forego the season, so he's not playing.
Yeah, nobody talked about that.
Yeah, and then you have the injuries that happen. So the injury happened. Seth Davis wasn't even supposed to play. Younger brother wasn't even supposed to play varsity this season.
And he ended up being the MVP
of the state game.
Yep.
And then Fernando Garza, the Texas A&M commit, he gets hurt late in the season, so they don't have him. Malik Silla, who just committed to Texas A&M the other day, he gets hurt late in the season. They had to cancel and move games throughout. The Tompkins game wasn't played when it was supposed to be played. Gary Joseph and his coaching staff, the job they did this year, I think will go down in history as one of the best coaching jobs ever at Katy High School. Because how they navigated and doing this with 15 to 18-year-old kids, unbelievable.
I think that's one of those things that people forget, including ourselves, because we're in the media and we cover high school sports. These are kids, especially Seth Davis, the MVP. Is he 16 years old? Like,
I don't know. He might not even be able to drive yet. He might have
he's a sophomore. Exactly. And the fact that Gary Joseph is able to navigate tough situations, it's tough if you're in the NFL or college, and especially in the NFL, those are grown men, but these are kids. And the fact that he has the control of the program and the kids are buying into what he's selling, that they go out and dominate a state championship and really the entire playoffs. Kudos to Katy and congratulations.
Yeah, we always talk about how there's the North Shore way, there's the Katy way. that you do things. And
Right.
Katie won a state championship this year, running the football, playing solid defense, and blocking out all the outside noise, especially after that loss to Tompkins. Because that loss to Tompkins, there was a lot of noise after that. I
Yeah.
mean, I'll be honest. I'll be the first one. After that game, I was like, okay, there's no way Katie's winning a state championship this year.
Especially once they saw Cedar Hill was on the other side of that matchup. One of the Achilles heel of Katie's is that more dynamic quarterback, that athlete quarterback who can make plays with his legs, and that's what Caden Salter is. So, but it almost like they learned their lessons from Tompkins facing Jalen Milroe, and maybe that also proves how good Jalen Milroe is, because people are questioning whether or not he can play quarterback at Alabama.
No, he'll play quarterback at Alabama.
I think so as well. So I think they used that. They went back to the tape and they made those corrections. Now, I saw a lot of chatter, Josh, that
A lot of chatter.
It was D2. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I really don't.
Here's the thing. Okay.
Which I want to chime in real quick, though.
Yeah.
I think what makes Westlake State Championship so impressive, in my eyes, is that they won D2 last year and then they won D1 this year. I think people just like to see that from Katie. But at the end of the matter, they won state.
Yeah, I mean, over the years, I mean, in the early 2012 when Katie won state, people, were like, okay, well, you didn't play Allen, you didn't play Kyler Murray. And here's the thing. At the time, it's like, I mean, you play the bracket that you're given.
100%.
You're put in the if you're put in the D2 bracket, that's the bracket you go and play. I mean, it doesn't devalue the state championship at all.
Correct.
It's still 6A state championship. Like at the end of the day, you're just in a different bracket. So we've talked a little bit about that. We need to bring up the sandwich counter because we all made our picks. I think we were all tied at one piece last week. There it is. Scotty T had one. Matt had one.
Yeah, y'all weren't ready for me last week.
We weren't ready.
Hey-o.
And there it is. Oh,
Producer Josh, what you got?
Yeah, there it is, 2-2. I had to give it to both of you because you both had the same record, and we didn't really do any tiebreaker type scenarios. So, Matt, looks like you're buying 2 sandwiches this week.
we have
Fist bump.
We have to tell Matt about that. We have to tell him he's buying lunch.
That's right. I was 2-0 in 5A and went 0-2 in 6A. I picked Cedar Hill and South Lake.
Yeah, that's bad.
The DFW schools faltered at the 6A level, but won at the 5A.
Yeah, so I think I went 2-0 in 6A, and then I think I went 0-2 in 5A. I think that's
we flip flop.
Yeah, I should.
We combined.
Yeah, I mean, I really thought Cedar Park was going to do it, but that was unfortunate. So we've updated the sandwich counter. We're going to go to a guy that I guess he probably was fed a lot of sandwiches over the state championships. Stephen Peters joins us here on Vype Blocker Talk Live, and Stephen, you were.
He's not on.
He's not on yet?
We're
still waiting.
This is a live show.
We're still waiting.
Guys. Can you hear me?
He's on.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
What's up, Peters?
What's happening, guys?
So, Steve, we were talking about the blowouts and, just the big – what were your thoughts on the games getting so out of hand so quickly in all the state championship games this past weekend?
I mean, it was definitely a disappointment, and I think that just kind of goes with the thought that matchups are everything, especially at the high school level. I think a lot of people thought the Alito Crosby game was going to be a little bit closer. I think then Ryan and Cedar Park was thought to be a little bit closer, and you just saw just supreme athleticism take over and shine. I mean, that's basically what it was. And then we got a half of the Carroll and Westlake game, and in that third quarter, it turned into a laugher, and almost halfway falling asleep through that quarter because it's one of these 50-point blowouts again.
Yeah, it sure was. And I asked Josh this question, and I want to ask you this question too. Which game were you surprised was a blowout? Because as you mentioned, all of them were, but which one kind of took you by surprise?
I'm definitely going to say the last game. I think just because of having 3 already. So we had Small School State that produced a lot of good games, and then we had, except for that Argyle game, and then we had the 3 previous Big School State games just turned into laughers really early on. And considering that you had Papa Dodge and Kid Dodge coaching against each other, they're essentially mirror images of each other. So I imagine that it was going to be a much closer game than it turned out to be. Yeah, the score might say 18 or whatever it was, but we all know it was a much bigger deficit or spread than it really that final score said.
Talking right now with Stephen Peters, our Vype DFW reporter, who was at the state championship game. So, I mean, Stephen, Alito gets championship number 10. Katy gets championship number 9. I mean, it took Katy 5 years to get its next state championship. Alito just does this every single year, it seems like. What does it say about those two programs? I mean, they just continuously pump out the talent and win these state championships over and over and over.
I mean, it all really boils down to that open recruitment. I mean, the majority of Texas high schools deal with some sort of open recruitment, and when you have a team that has already set a precedent for being of excellence, that's going to attract, people who move either from within the state or out of state because their kid maybe wanted to play athletics, and they recognize that the talent goes here. They win regularly. You can expect to have your name in the higher ranks of the recruiting ranks and be on Sports Center like TAP was. So, I mean, that's kind of where it stops and starts in my estimation. But, I mean, hats off to the coaches, though. I mean, they routinely have to live up to those expectations. The kids have to play up to those expectations, and they excel. But, again, when you get into the cream of the crop, Alito, they're getting all the West Side Fort Worth kids and the North Side Fort Worth kids coming up and playing for them and moving to that area. I mean, when you get the cream of the crop, you're able to perform better, and I think we're not going to see that stop anytime soon.
So earlier this week, after the state was all said and done, you wrote an article on Vype.com. You can go check it out on Vype.com. It's 7 thoughts, improvements to the Texas high school football season. And, reading through those, some of those include, keeping the Friday night broadcast, for instance. This year, the UIL lifted the ban on Friday night live broadcasting. That was one of them. Another one is changing up the state sites. We talked about that last week, or I think we talked about that in the watch along.
During the broadcast.
Yeah, with the coaches talking about changing up the state sites. And then the other idea that I really like is the divisional champs meeting up. So essentially, this week you would see Katy and Austin Westlake play for the overall 6A state championship. Now, granted, that would add a 17th week to the Texas high school football season. Just kind of talk through those couple topics that I just brought up, because I really like those 3. I think it would add another week, but it would be really fun to see Austin Westlake and Katy lock up for an overall 6A state title.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even in the local aspect, I'd love to see Denton Ryan and Alito square off, because that's just talent on talent meeting. Same thing with Katy and Westlake. Argyle and Carthage, we talked about that after small school state. We would want to see those 2 teams square off because the game, I think, would go up to the next level because you have the divisional champs finally squaring off and taking that ownership and bragging rights for all of the classifications, not just half of it, just all of it. And you can say we are the definitive champions of this classification. Now, granted, I know when it comes to the small schools and you have the Division I and Division II, the talent pool is much wider. So that kind of would be a cause for concern, I'm sure, amongst the coaches. But I think from a fan and even just reporter perspective, you're getting just the best of the best to showcase. And maybe it doesn't even have to be a title game. Maybe it can just be like a scrimmage or exhibition game just to have those teams square off. I definitely about the TV. I think as a kind of that point, I kind of wrapped up by saying the colleges and pros figured it out that television gives you more opportunity and more exposure. If we're going to have 64 teams per division in high school sports, I mean, TV is still another one of those avenues to get these kids exposure for the colleges that they may not otherwise get. I know Huddle and all Max Preps and everything like that have come to fruition, but still having TV and being able to see it locally if you're not able to travel or something is definitely what the UIL needs to continue to do. They need to open up to other sports as well. More eyes, the better, I think. And it might hurt attendance here and there, but overall, I think it's just going to better the sport as those revenue streams increase in that regard.
Yeah, no, that's one of those. I mean, even in the chat section during the watch along, we got that a lot. We're like, hey, where can we watch the game? We can't watch the game. So I think, I mean, even Josh texted me, is like, hey, I don't know if I can watch the game. That's like, we do this for a living.
And this year, especially Fox Sports Southwest having a contract dispute with certain streaming services, such as like I have Hulu Live at home, and
YouTube TV
for about a month haven't had Fox Sports Southwest because they're in a contract dispute, and it's mainly against the streaming companies. But we digress. So you go as we look. It's kind of weird. We say we look towards 2021. We're in 2021. We finished the 2020 season in 2021. Who are some of your favorite teams that you could see back at AT&T Stadium next December vying for another state championship?
Are you talking about just the DFW area or all of state?
Just all the state. I mean, all the state kind of teams that, DFW area or, anybody that played this weekend that you could see back there next year.
Let's start with the Metroplex and then kind of work our way around.
Sure. So for 6A, I'm kind of looking at Carroll. They've got Ewers again. They've got Owen Allen. That defense is young. Offensive line is going to have some shuffling, but they're going to be mostly back. Same thing with the defense. The defense is, I think they have 9 starters or 10 starters coming back from this year's team, so they're going to be back in the mix. I'm kind of intrigued with the Euless Trinity having Ollie Gordon again. I think they'll be in the mix, and Allen as well. The Rockwall schools, 5. Obviously with 6A, you're going to have Katy. I think it's going to be back. You guys mentioned it earlier before you brought me on that they're young, they're talented, and it's just the Katy way to continue to roll talent up through the ranks and just recycle it. Same thing with Westlake. Westlake's, they've got the quarterback now. I'm blanking on his name, and but he's
Klubnik.
He's going to be back, and that team is relatively young. So the stalwarts that we all see year in and year out, I think, are still going to be there. 5A is going to be the same thing. Highland Park, Denton Ryan. Denton Ryan's going to have a drop off in talent for sure, but they'll be in the mix. I think Highland Park is that team that's going to be the biggest challenger out of the DFW in 5A D1. 5A D2, Alito, and Timberview, I think, are the 3 teams that I'm kind of looking at right now. Cedar Park, I think, will be an interesting team. Same thing with CCU Vets Memorial. From what I remember, they're a young team. So I think a lot of the teams that we saw this year had to rely on a lot of underclassmen and juniors to help. Yes, the senior teams, senior players were good, and they definitely had their part. But I think a lot of these teams also had a lot of underclassmen that stepped up and performed, and we'll see a lot of the same old moving forward in 2021.
All right. He is Stephen Peters. Check out his work on Vype.com. He covers the Vype DFW area for us. I know they've asked for, some all Vype nominations. So all Vype team will be coming out for the DFW area. I'm very interested to see who their player of the year is going to be for Vype DFW. But I know Steven's got to keep that as a secret right now. Can't let that secret out of the bag.
We can't show all the cards right now.
All right,
Absolutely.
Steven, we appreciate the time. Great coverage of UIL State and
That's right.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Steven.
All right, so that's
Steven Peters. He does a great job up there, man.
Man, dude, he crushes it. Crushes UIL State, does a great job. All the graphics, the uniform combination graphics and final stat graphics and everything.
Yeah.
Everything involved.
The longest season of Texas high school football was this year, partially because 5 and 6 got pushed back while the smaller schools were started, quote, on time.
Yeah.
But, people are also talking about some people like the fact that the 5A and 6A was a separate weekend than the rest, than the smaller schools. It's almost like you give the smaller schools a little bit more of a spotlight. And as we touched on earlier, those 1A through 3A games were all nail biters. They all went down. Yeah. So when they got the spotlight, they shined. Outside of the 4A, Carthage and Argyle just wrecked shop. But
it'll be interesting. I don't think we'll see I think they're going to get it back to one weekend or 1 week next year. I think it's going to go back to that.
It's just it's a nice little change of pace, I think.
I think I could see, like, eventually, I think it would be nice. Like, the season for 4A, 5A starts at the last week of August, and maybe, or maybe what you do is you start 4A and 3A a week earlier, and then a week like kind of like basketball does, like boys and girls basketball. So
They're staggered.
they're staggered. So you'll have boys basketball state, or you have girls basketball state championships one week, and then the next week it'll be with the boys basketball state championship. So each gets their own shine.
I think that'll be great.
I think that would be I think that would be cool.
There's a lot of logistical errors that come with that, like reserving AT&T Stadium for back-to-back weekends. That's probably why they don't. But I agree with you. I think that'll be great.
Or hey, here's what you could do too. This would be fun.
What you got? I'm listening.
Now I know UIL people wouldn't like this, but you could do like 1A through 4A. It could be like NRG Stadium, and then the next weekend 5A 6A could be at AT&T Stadium, and then like the next year
just kind of rotate.
NRG Stadium would host 5A 6A. AT&T, like, kind of rotate the
maybe throw in the Alamo Dome there.
Alamo Dome would be mixed in and stuff like that. So I don't know, a lot of ideas.
I'm not in charge,
though.
So Josh, you watched a lot of Texas high school football this year.
Yes, I did.
What were some of the top games in your mind? I know it's a loaded question. As we mentioned, a lot of Texas high school football. We're based in the Houston area for everybody watching here, so maybe Houston is just more what you saw. But what game stuck out to you?
I think the top game has to be the Liberty Hill Crosby game. How that game finished, absolutely heartbreaking for Liberty Hill, thrilling for Crosby. Back and forth, just absolute battle between two really good teams. State was on the line. Both communities were just rocking and rolling. That was the top game for me this year. The number 2 game has to be North Shore Westlake. And that I'm telling you, that's hard to put at number 2. That's hard to put at number 2.
Let's say there's some really good ones out there.
Because that was a lot of talent. It just felt like that game, it was a really good environment. It's just that was more of a chess match of a game. Like, as much as, it was how that one finished being in overtime and making that, Liberty Hill making that decision. We're going for 2. We're going to try to win it all. And then just right there at the goal line, they fall short. I think that's what makes a difference. So my number 1 game is Liberty Hill versus Crosby. Number 2 game is Westlake versus North Shore. I think the number 3 game for me this year, just because of the history of it, I think Tompkins beating Katy to snap the 75 game, a district game winning streak, even though I know Katy just won state.
Gary Joseph talks about it. The last time they lost a game in district was 2008, and then they went on to win a state championship that year.
Yeah, sometimes you just need that extra motivation. So that's the number 3 game, just because of the history behind that game, how big it was for Tompkins, that community. They had never beaten Katy before. It was just a real and Jalen Milrow played a perfect game that night too.
Yes,
absolutely, just laser focused playing that game. So that'd be my number 3 game. My 4th best game, I think, has to be Tomball Memorial beating Westbrook in the at the beginning of the year.
Ooh.
In that 62-56 thriller
that was a shootout. Bryce Anderson over there.
Yeah, Bryce Anderson, and then
put the team on his back.
You had Colton Marwell. You had Joseph Manjack going for Tomball Memorial. You had Richard Rodriguez Jr. in the backfield running for 150 something yards. And that was just a thrilling win. So off the top, I did go to quite a few games this year, but off the top of my head, man, those were some of the best games that I can remember.
How about
for this year?
How about Heights knocking off Lamar?
Yeah, so as far as other games I wasn't at that I saw from distance, Heights beating Lamar was huge. Spring beating Westfield on the Hail Mary. Bishop Davenport just airing it out. They win on Hail Mary, end up winning district. That was a huge win for them.
So I want to give a shout out to Austin Regents, who won state on a walk-off pick 6.
That's ridiculous.
Walk-off pick 6. That is so sick. That is awesome. So you mentioned Spring beating Westfield.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, because we want to talk about some early 2021 favorites. For me, Spring's got to be up there. With Bishop Davenport coming back, that offense just seemed really dynamic. Obviously, Katy and whatnot, but Josh, you're the pro. What are some teams that stick out to you for 2021 way too early favorites?
Katy's the top. Katy is. The running back, you bring back Seth Davis. He was only a sophomore this last year, had a huge season, over 1,000 yards. So he'll be a junior next year. Caleb Koger really developed a quarterback for the Tigers this year. Really like what he's doing. I think, another year he'll grow. He'll have a full offseason in the offense. Defensively, they bring back Malik Silla. They bring back a couple different guys, Bobby Taylor in the back in the secondary as well. So their kicker Lachik is also back as well. So Katie looks really good. Spring, like you mentioned, Bishop Davenport, really big time quarterback. I think he's going to have a huge offseason when it comes to recruiting. I think the camps hopefully will get going again. He'll pick up a bunch of offers. Good sized quarterback, can really throw the ball deep down the field. Bridgelands is another team that's going to be really good next year.
Yep, they're on my list.
Connor Wigman, we just saw him yesterday in our baseball photo shoot. He's a big time shortstop for them as well, but big time quarterback, unanimous 16-6A MVP overall, had a huge year passing the ball. Can run as well, has multiple dual sport offers where he can go play football, baseball at the next level. I think Bridges is going to be pretty good. They're going to have to find an answer to replace Dylan Goffney, who's going to SMU.
Yeah, really dynamic playmaker.
They got, Minamara on defense. He's a big senior defensive end they're going to have to replace as well. Building a culture there. And then, North Shore is going to be interesting to watch because you now go into the post-Demetrius Davis, Shadrach Banks era.
What an era
right?
that was.
Like,
what an era.
Last 3 years, we've known that this guy right here, Demetrius Davis, was going to suit up for North Shore. And now, he's off to Auburn. Banks is off to Texas A&M. So who's next? Who's the next dude? There's some dudes coming up at North Shore that are going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I think that defense is going to be really good.
Yeah, defense is going to be,
because they were kind of young
really
this year, so I expect their defense to really be the strength of that team as they kind of work their way work their way through the kinks of offense.
Yeah, Matt Maltese is working on his next North Shore book. The next chapter is being written here in a few weeks. So North Shore will be up there. Westfield brings back Cardell Williams at quarterback. Really, honestly, what I tell a lot of coaches is we look at quarterbacks, we look at offensive weapons.
Just like in college or the NFL, it really does start with the quarterback.
It does. You look at also Westlake. Cade Klubnik's going to come back next year. Their Jordan Greathouse, their wide receiver, who's only a sophomore, led the team in receiving. He's back next year. You have to go look at the offensive line, see who's back on that group as well. So a lot of favorites. I'm going to work on an article sometime this week. I'll break down my favorites.
Yeah. Also keep an eye out for Jaden Blue, Klein Kane.
Jaden Blue, yeah, big. Yeah, Jaden Blue, Matthew Golden as well over there.
Great recruits over there. So, Josh, one thing that was interesting and fun about the late Texas high school football season is that we're already in district play in basketball. It's kind of crazy to think about.
We are
more than halfway through the basketball season when football ends. But here at Vype, we're just going to pivot. That's what we do. We switch and we pivot. Now the football is over. We are in basketball mode.
Just like that. The switch got flipped.
And who's our number 2 preseason team in the city of Houston, but has really taken the entire state by storm is Atascocita. I haven't seen them play yet, but Vype ambassador Robert, going blank on Robert's last name. Yeah. I think he went and saw them play. Said they were great. So, Josh, who are some of the teams that are sticking out to you on the hoops side of things, boys and girls? Because I know you saw Cy Creek play.
Yeah, so Cy Creek girls are unbelievable. Number 1 team in the state in Class 6A, 19-0 in the season. The new TABC rankings came out yesterday. They come out weekly. So they're the number 1 team in the state for girls.
Yep.
You mentioned Atascocita boys. Atascocita 13-0 on the year. Number 2 team in the state, only behind Waxahachie, who's at 13-2. And, speaking of those Atascocita Eagles, we are now joined on the phone, on the Vype hotline, by head coach David Martinez of those Atascocita Eagles. And, Coach, how's this season been so far? You're number 2 team in the state. You've played 13 games, which I know is a lot less than you're used to at this point. But how has it kind of gone for y'all so far?
Well, first off, thanks for having me. But as far as the season's gone, it's been fine. We've been kind of plowing through. It's very, very difficult during this time, and we've been pretty fortunate for the most part. But we still have a ways to go. So, job's never done.
That's right, Coach Martinez. This is Sky. How's it been handling your team through this time? Because games are constantly getting rescheduled and whatnot. What's your message to the players as you navigate this season?
And I just try to tell them, I try to reiterate every day, every time I see them, let's do all that we can so that we can keep the season going. And that means we got to sanitize and keep a mask on when we practice and when we play. We're constantly telling them to wash their hands. It helps somewhat, and we're just trying to minimize just minimize us being exposed to it. And so you just do little things like that, and that's really all you can do. You keep your social distancing. You don't gather in rooms and things of that nature. For the most part, we try to meet out in open space for whatever that's worth. We're just trying to do our part. I don't know that I have the answers. I just hope and pray that we get to the end of this soon.
What have you liked about this team? I mean, you've had so many good teams and good players that have come through. I mean, including Carson Edwards a few years ago, who's now with the Boston Celtics. Talk about what do you like about the makeup of this team and the guys that you have in that locker room right now?
Well, for starters, they all like each other, and that's always a big piece. This group is close knit. The core of the group came in together, and we got about half and half, juniors and seniors, and the juniors have good leaders to look up to, and they kind of fall in line. But that senior group has been with me for a while. I've known them for a long time. I followed them in middle school, and they've been coming to my camp since they were little kids. And they truly and genuinely care for one another, and I think that's a big part of our success. They've also been through a lot. I mean, they've been in the playoffs before. They've been in big games. We lost a tough one last year in the third round to Dickinson, and those kids have to feel that experience, and I think they were better for it because of that. So, but overall, it's just a good group of kids. They're very coachable. They do everything I ask them to do, and I'm just trying to put them in position to win every game.
That's right, Coach. So you mentioned you've been able to learn some of the lessons. What were some of those lessons that you learned from last season that you've been able to translate to this year?
Well, I mean, sometimes no matter how good a team you have, sometimes you still have to go through the fire. And I've been doing this a long time, and I know that. I mean, no matter how hard you work, no matter what you do, sometimes it's just not your year. And we ran into a team, Dickinson last year, who had struggled in the playoffs the previous 3 years. And, Tremont Mark and Marcus Williams and those guys, now they were seniors. And you can tell the second half of the Dickinson game in the third round of playoffs last year, you saw a totally different team. And I honestly didn't think there was anybody that could beat them from that point. I mean, they literally turned it on. That's the best I saw them play. That second half of basketball and the 2 games in the regional tournament, and they didn't get to play in the state tournament, obviously, but I really thought they were on to something. So going through the fire is one, experience is another. When the senior group was sophomores for me, only 2 of them got to play in a playoff game. And we lost at the buzzer to Beaumont United, and only 2 of the sophomores played. And then last year, all of them got to play and had a big piece of it. And then this year, with all of them having that experience, and then the 2 from the previous year, I think it's just kind of all coming together for them. They've been there quite a bit now. They know what to expect from a big game. They know how to they understand what executing in practice and in games is like. And I don't know. I think all those things help us. That experience has really helped this team.
Talking right now with Coach David Martinez, head coach of the Atascocita Eagles, the number 2 team in the most recent TABC hoops rankings at 13-0. And Coach, I mean, a few years ago, I've been around your program for quite a few years now. Back in 2016, y'all made that run all the way to the state championship game, and that group was close knit, and we knew they were tight. I know it's still early, but do you see some similarities between that 2016 group or 2015-2016 group that made the state and this one, just kind of how they're playing right now?
I do. I really do. Our style of play is very similar to that team, and it has to do with guys on that team being willing passers. Now, the difference between that team is we didn't have a pro. We don't have a pro this year like we did in that year, and I think we have 2 of them. If we get lucky, we'll get 2. Carson obviously is already in the NBA, and Fabian, he had an injury this year, and I do think he has a chance to make money somewhere at some time. So we don't have anybody like that. But what we do have is we have depth, we have togetherness, we have some grit on this team, and this team battles. And, very similar to that 2016 team where they refused to lose. And that reminds me of them a lot. The ball doesn't stick with this group. We kind of had a couple years in the middle where the ball, I wasn't pleased with what we were doing offensively. The ball just stuck in one person's hands too long. And so we're back to doing the things Atascocita does and playing Atascocita basketball with a lot of movement. And some pressure defense, and it just kind of worked for us.
Yeah, it's one of those things, over the years, the golden years, like for instance of the San Antonio Spurs when they had Duncan and Parker and Ginobili and that crew. I mean, they moved the ball around so much. I know a lot of coaches like to see that. I mean, is that enjoyable for you right now? That, I mean, like you said, it's kind of back to the Atascocita way of things of moving the ball around. Are you enjoying this year seeing that ball move around as much as it is?
Oh, there's no question. I mean, that's who we are. That's how I coach. That's how I coach them in practice. And when you go out there and you see them move the ball the way they do, and just find the open guy, it doesn't matter who scores, and not really caring who's getting all that. It's a really beautiful thing, and it changes every year. I mean, it's easy to say, it's all about personnel, what type of kids you got, and we've had some great kids come through here, in between those years. But if you get a majority of them that think that way and are playing and pulling for the team, that's the result you get. Just like the Spurs, Spurs changed personnel a little bit. Look what happens. The ball sticks a little more and win as many games. They're not final conference. But I think personnel has a lot to do with it. And on top of that, the experience that those guys have with each other, winning games in that style, that has a lot to do with it. So I don't know. It's just from my observation. I mean, we've had some really good teams here. We won a lot of games with the teams in between 216 and now. I mean, just as many games, So it's just different. Every team is different, and you try. I go into each and every year trying to figure out how good can I make this year's team. That's kind of my goal. I want to see how good we can make them. And this team is rolling right now, and we're kind of enjoying it. So we want to keep it going.
Before we let you go, you mentioned make this team as good as it can be. As you sit there here, and I know for sure y'all have not played as many games as you usually would have at this point of the season. And so as you go through the rest of district play here over the next month or so and then get into the playoffs, what do you want to see this team get better at to be that best team that you think this group can be?
That's a great question. It's actually something me and my staff have been talking about lately. We're just trying to improve. We're trying to find areas in our game where we can improve. We've been shorthanded for the most of the year for a couple of reasons. One, injury, and also football season being pushed back. So if you watch this play at the beginning of the year, we didn't have any size, and we're playing real well. Well, all of a sudden, now we've got three guys between 6'5" and 6'7", just like that. So working those guys in, trying to find a role for them on the team, that's kind of our biggest challenge right now. Because I think now we have enough size now to compete at a really, really high level. We just got to get those guys going. So it's coming. I mean, they've been with us about 2 weeks now, so it's coming.
All right, he is David Martinez. He's the head coach of the Atascocita Eagles, 13-0, number 2 in the state. Coach, hey, we appreciate the time. We always appreciate you talking with us over here at Vype, and I'm going to have to make my way out there to a Atascocita game to come see you and the Eagles at some point here in the next few weeks.
My pleasure, Josh. Good talking to you.
For sure.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Coach David Martinez of the Atascocita Eagles. Always appreciate his time here with Vype as we move on here.
I kind of forget that Carson Edwards
Yeah.
went to Atascocita, a guy who took over, led a good Purdue team deep in the NCAA tournament. I think it was one of those guys, if you want to call him undersized, whatever, but really impressed on the Boston Celtics, and he's doing pretty well last I saw.
Yeah, I mean, I covered him in his senior year of high school, so in 2016. I followed that Atascocita team really closely because they went into the state game undefeated. They never lost a game until losing to DeSoto in that state championship game. And I mean, Carson was he's a player.
He's a baller.
Yeah, that dude could shoot from anywhere on the court whenever he wanted. He would drop 30, 40, 50. I think he dropped 50. I have to text Coach Martinez. I think he dropped 50 in his final regular season game.
It's fine.
Yeah, he goes to Purdue, blows up there, has an amazing. I mean, there's a lot of programs that missed on him. Like when he was going nuts for Purdue in the tournament, there's a lot of programs that are probably going.
Yeah, especially here in the Texas area. Are you telling me that the University of Texas wouldn't love Carson Edwards at that time?
He would have looked real good in that burnt orange,
or
that Texas Tech red, or that Baylor green.
Yeah,
just saying.
Those Aggies.
But man, you
not
know,
too
good
far.
for him. Good for him. Good for Carson Edwards. So happy for him.
Absolutely.
And Atascocita. You know, as we talk a little bit more about basketball, we got into a little bit of the rankings. So, you know, TABC rankings come out every week. We mentioned that. Atascocita number 2, as we mentioned. Duncanville, defending state champions. They're number 3 right now, 15-1 on the season.
It's kind of weird though when you say defending state champions because this is the 2019 state champions. Even though they made it to the state tournament.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they did make it to the state tournament. They were going for back to back.
Right.
You know, other teams. You know, Fort Bend Elkins.
Technically, we have 2 defending state champions because if you made it to state and you didn't play the state final, you got awarded the state champion.
Well, I mean, no, we're not. No, we're not counting.
You know,
that.
it just
No.
in general, just from here until the rest of the year.
I'll tell you who
We
will
can't
count
say-
that as-
really
as a
say
team
that
that
one.
won.
I
Yeah.
would just crown Dickinson. Dickinson would have won the whole thing last year. That was hands down the
You
best
know-
team.
you know
Over
if it-
Duncanville?
Oh yeah.
You know, if a team hadn't made it before, they're putting that banner in their gym for sure. Which
Oh, they are. Oh, that banner's hung. That banner's they're putting that up there. I mean, I that's the one thing that I look back to last spring where I'm like, I mean, I know the UIL had to do it because at the time and the NBA shut down and stuff, but man, it would have been 2 more days. 2 more days. Like
Yates
I think hindsight's 2020, but I think they could have just had no fans.
Was that a pun?
And maybe it was.
Hindsight 2020.
Hindsight is
I'm just saying.
2020.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing because I mean they were literally on the cusp of playing.
Yates was there. They were in San Antonio.
Yates was there. Stafford was there. Duncanville was there. I
Yeah.
mean, that's hard. That Duncanville
I mean-
or Dickinson. Dickinson was there.
Dickinson was there. Yates was there. I don't think Hightower was there yet, but
No, Hightower was there.
They're on the 5A rankings
Yeah,
right now.
Hightower was
Like
there.
Bryce Griggs is balling out this year. Like,
Dude, that
that was pretty big that he actually came back to Houston because he transferred out, but then came back.
Yeah, he came back. Yeah.
So
Other teams, Fort
Yeah.
Bend Elkins number 7 team in boys. Shadow Creek's number 8 team in boys right now. Bel Air number 9.
they're
right now
number
in the
8,
state.
right?
Uh,
Shadow Creek is 8,
yeah,
not
they're
18.
8. Yeah, they're 8.
Bel Air number 9. I'll tell you what, we saw McKinney at the DFW basketball photo shoot.
Yeah.
They got some size
They got
this
some
year.
size.
They got a lot of guys coming back. They're definitely a team to watch in the Metroplex.
Yeah, other ones, Summer Creek, number 11 in the state of Texas right now. Look at Pearland Doss, number 20. So, you know, I mean, a lot of good teams. Lancaster, number 1 team in 5A boys. Beaumont United. How about Beaumont United?
We saw them.
17-0.
Yeah, we saw them at the Southeast Texas basketball photo shoot last week. Very impressive.
Well,
looking
here's the thing
guys.
about Beaumont United is that it was a few years ago, it was Beaumont Central and Beaumont Ozen, and then they took the 2 schools and combined them. And Ozen and Central were both really, really good basketball schools.
Hence, they're united,
So you
right?
essentially created the Super Beaumont team, is what you did.
Yeah, you know that's
They
interesting.
Los Angeles Laker did,
Yeah,
is
ooh,
what happened.
Wow, think so?
I mean, if they go into, I mean,
Or Big Three, Miami Heat?
Big 3. Yeah. Yeah. Big
Yeah,
3.
no, that's interesting. I mean, that's a debate that we could probably that we could talk about at a different point. But Coach Williams and Coach McDowell we're talking a lot about building new schools. That's one thing Matt Malatesta is kind of hitting on right now that I'm sure he'll write an article about on Vype.com, which you should go check out. But you know, combining schools, how you always talk about Allen has like 5,000 kids, but then Katy has 12 ISD schools within that ISD.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting to say that about Beaumont United. Not surprising then that they're up in the top 5 of the rankings.
It is not surprising. I mean, 17-0, number 2 in the state right now. A few other notable teams.
Let's switch to the girls' side.
Yates, by the way, number 2 in the state of Texas as well.
I'm surprised they're not number 1. Who's Faith Family? I'm not familiar with them.
Faith Family, they're the one on the DFW. They're the one that won state 2 years ago. They're the ones that won on that like walk off dunk.
Right.
Where the guy dunks it at the buzzer. Faith Family. They're the team that came here a few weeks ago and played. I think
Was it Shadow Creek?
Shadow Creek, and I
then
played Shadow Creek,
and then Legacy played Duncanville.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And then Legacy played a team from Michigan who had
Yepsy Prep.
Yepsy Prep. And who's the number 1 player?
I can't remember his name.
On that team?
It escapes me. It's like 2022 kid.
He was
can't
good.
remember.
He was good. Links are on our Vype YouTube channel, which you are watching on right now, where you can go check out
That is
Yepsy
true.
Prep versus Legacy.
Yeah, you can go check that out. Girls wise, Side Creek number 1 in the state in 6A. Here's a big surprise.
What you got?
Kingwood Park, number 3 in the state in 5A, 18-0.
That's impressive.
They are an
Very
impressive team.
impressive.
I literally live down the street from the school, so I'm gonna have to go check out the Panthers. A few years ago, they had a girl named Allie Bird there that was just a baller, and I think little sister's now with the team, and she's playing really good. So Kingwood Park, number 3 in the state of Texas. Foster playing really good as well. Surprised they're not higher than number 11 in the state rankings. Kaya Wynn has been playing out of this world. 30, I think she's averaging like 30 points. She's the young lady that moved from Tennessee. She's committed to and signed to Tennessee.
She's the real deal.
Yeah, she's real deal. We got some messages about her. So Kaya Wynn, don't worry. You are on the Vype radar for sure. And then down in 4A, my alma mater, how about this? Fredericksburg, number 3 in the state. Let's go. Battling Billies, the Lady Billies. A little Ibra Alice right there. There we go. Lady Billies, number 3 in the state of Texas.
Happened. What you said. You know, one of my observations from looking at the girls versus the boys rankings, a lot more Houston girls teams. And they're Houston Heights at number 15. They're who's the girl signed with UTEP? Gabrielle Alvarez.
Yep.
She's great. We saw her play at the Vype Aldine basketball tournament last year.
Langham Creek, number 5.
Yeah, not really
Perkins.
surprising there, I don't think.
Yeah, Kaylee Perkins going to Oklahoma off that team. Fort Bend Dulles undefeated. Big shout out to the Dulles Vikings. 18-0. Nia Threat has been phenomenal for that team. Phenomenal. I feel like now that this is the weird thing. This is kind of the bad thing about football going this far is basketball has kind of been like overlooked much longer.
A little bit.
Because now I'm actually like, okay, football is over.
We got to switch gears.
Basketball is here. Because usually what happens is football ends the week before Christmas. Have the Christmas tournaments, which you usually go to, and you see all the basketball teams.
Yeah, and that's where you really get a good idea of who's doing what at that point.
Yeah, because some you've kind of seen in district and out of district. Then you get in a flow. But this year, it's just a weird, funky. Like soccer's already going as well. We're gonna be hosting our soccer photo shoot tomorrow. We had our baseball photo shoot yesterday. I'm ready for things to get back to normal. Honestly, I don't like the split anymore. Now that I talk about it some more, I don't like it anymore because I mean. It's one of those things that the other sports, like, you know, because football, once you get that deep in the playoffs, it just dominates everything. Like state quarterfinals, state semis, and now basketball, we kind of have to catch up on. But we will for sure catch up on basketball, soccer, track and field coming up,
or even
tennis. Yeah,
even what like Coach Martinez was just talking about. A lot of the football guys join the basketball team later. So even for the basketball coaches, there's a lot of guys who play football and then put on the shoes to play basketball in the winter. Coach McDowell was talking about it at Foster too. That like a lot of these guys, it's just later. There's a difference between football shape versus basketball shape as well. So it kind of messes everything up. Like theoretically, we should be on schedule now, moving forward through the end of the year.
Hopefully so. Hopefully,
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I think the only thing that I have seen that's been pushed is wrestling. Wrestling is going to get pushed into the spring a little further.
Okay.
I think they're going to do that because that's usually in February. I think it's going to be March, April.
There's a lot of football players who wrestle.
There's a lot of football players that wrestle. And you mentioned football players. Coach McDowell, Ruben Fathery, the second at Foster, who's the big offensive lineman signed to Texas A&M. He plays basketball too. He led the team in scoring last year.
Yeah.
By the way,
no big deal.
Aggies need another basketball player, and I want to find the young man in the country that will try and draw a charge against Ruben Fathery. He's 6'8", like huge. You're not driving the paint against him.
Say if you do that, you'll feel it in the morning.
You'll feel it right then, and then you'll probably have to have your friend tell you what happened the next morning because, man, Ruben Fathery is a big time baller. But a lot of exciting stuff, basketball going on, soccer season getting going, first round tournaments. We'll get to our final thoughts here on Locker Talk Live. I'll give the floor to Sky T. Man, we kind of covered it all. We talked football, we talked soccer, we talked basketball all this week in the Locker Talk edition.
You know what my final thoughts are?
What's your final thoughts?
Woo! It's been a sprint, really, ever since September hit, once the 5A, 6A's game getting here, because we had football, volleyball, and now we're already more than halfway through basketball. We're doing photo shoots. It's crazy time here at Vype Media, but we're having a blast. To go along with that with the Wolf, big shouts to Katy ISD. Katy High School having the 6A D2 state championship, Seven Lakes winning the 6A D1 volleyball championship, and then Seven Lakes winning the cheer competition as well. It's been a great fall season for Katy ISD. So I want to give props and shout outs to Katy ISD.
Yeah, and I mean, now that we turn into the soccer portion, Katie Tompkins always good at girls soccer. They're always a power program. Katie softball, technically still defending softball state champions.
Technically,
Katie
that's
baseball,
right.
Maybe run Tompkins baseball looks really good. Got a bunch of committed guys. So yeah, I mean, good little props there to Katy ISD.
They've earned it. I mean, Allie Batenhorst, I don't know if we even gave her due credit as she did. She has all the accolades, but it cannot be understated how good that Seven Lakes team, led by the Nebraska signee and Allie Batenhorst, her sister Casey as well.
Yep.
The whole squad over there at Seven Lakes, so impressive. And then Katy football just doing Katy things. They run the football, they play good defense, they just win state championships. It's awesome. And then Seven Lakes cheered too. Like it's a good year to be in Katy ISD, I think.
So those are Sky T's final thoughts. Now my final thoughts. What am I going to talk about?
What you got,
Sky T? What am I going to talk about today? My final thought today is just everyone keep it up. Keep it up. We're doing good. We're doing good. Sports are still going. I know it's been almost a year now since this pandemic has happened. Mask up. Social distance as much as you can. Sanitize, things like that. These kids have worked hard. These coaches have worked hard. Coaches are working hard. Man, this is a hard year to coach, be an administrator, everything, COVID protocols. Big applause to the UIL for finishing a football season that some thought may never happen because of COVID. We've checked the boxes on volleyball, cross country, football. All those boxes are checked. Now we just need to get through the spring. We need to get through basketball, track, golf, tennis, wrestling. Get those final boxes checked off here and finish this athletic calendar fully this year so that the class of 2021 doesn't have to go through what the class of 2020 did and those seniors lose their spring sports like they did. I really want to see track, looking that, Fort Bend Marshall is going to be phenomenal again. Just different athletes across the city are going to be phenomenal in track season. So keep it up, everybody. Keep it up. Keep following along with Vype. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel here, Vype Texas. Go to our Twitter at Vype Houston, Vype DFW, Vype ATX, Vype SCTX, Vype SATX. We're in all the regions. We're all across the state.
I want to give a shout out to Scott Conroe, watching from the New York area.
Wow.
Yeah, he says he loves the show. He loves watching high school football because in that region, to your point, Josh, they didn't really play high school football up there this year.
Yep.
So big shout out to the UIL, to TAPS, to SBC, to all the governing bodies who allowed football, volleyball, cross country, all the sports to happen, and basketball continuing to happening. And we also got some basketball news, Josh.
Okay.
That might be worth sharing. That's coming up this Friday night.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
This Friday night. If you're familiar, this last fall we did the Battle of Baytown, the countdown to kickoff. This now we are pivoting. It's what we do. We pivot. Basketball season here. We're going to Second Baptist School in Houston, Texas, as they take on the Woodlands Christian Academy, the Warriors of TWCA. We will be there. Countdown the tip-off. 5 or 5:30. No, we'll be starting at 5 o'clock.
Yep, 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock because the girls' game we'll be live broadcasting the girls' game at 5:30.
Yep.
And then we're going to do a pregame show for the boys' game.
Uh-huh.
And then live broadcast the boys' game at 7:30 that night as well.
And I'm going to be drinking my hot tea before that because I'm going to be hosting the pregame show for both games. Will be 4 hours of glory. And I'm so excited. Vype Countdown to Tip-Off coming this Friday, starting at 5 o'clock live here on our YouTube channel, Vype Texas. You'll be sure to want to subscribe to that. Follow us at Vype Houston. We're actually going to be there early in the day. They have a pep rally. I was told today they're having a pep rally early in the day. So we're going to get some footage of that.
We're going to do some behind the scenes. That's why you got to check us out. Vype. Josh mentioned all the social media channels. Really just type in Vype and what region you're in. We'll be there.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm pumped up. I'm pumped up for these games. TWCA, of course, defending TAPS 4A state champions.
They move up to 5A, but are having a really great season as well.
Really great season. Second Baptist School having a really great season as well. Jordan Williams, a transfer over there, dropping some monster numbers.
I haven't seen him play yet, and
I'm ready.
Am excited.
I'm ready. You know he's got like an offer from Baylor for basketball. He got that like in the 8th grade.
That's my school. Those are my people.
I'm just saying.
Scott Drew, also big shout out to being in Kansas last night.
Also, another big thing for the girls. Second Baptist School girls played for the state championship last year.
That's right.
Fell a little short in that one. So huge matchup. Huge matchup. Could be for the tops in the districts. We're going to see after tonight how the district standings are, but be sure to tune in 5 o'clock on Friday. Vype watch along countdown to tip off TWCA versus Second Baptist School girls and boys basketball. It's a Vype double header. And actually, we're going to be hosting the show right here. This is your dream team for Friday's show.
Team, my alma mater, Second Baptist School. SPS.
We'll be ready to go. Well,
I'll be back.
That'll wrap it up for this one. Also, shout out to producer JW, Josh Dubb. Josh Dubb producing this show every single week. Yeah. Remote
producing. Josh also produced the watch-alongs.
He did.
All weekend as well. So big shout-outs to Josh W. Whack. J-Dub, whatever you want to call him.
He needs a break.
He's the man. Crushing it. He's also going to be producing the Vype U podcast, which is new time airing Sunday night.
Oh,
live.
Wow.
Live on Sunday nights to start off your week. Be sure to tune in to the Vype U podcast. Will Turboff, Tinsley Kane, Roberts. Goslin. That's twice. I forgot his name. I'm sorry. He's the man. Yeah, they do a great job over at Vype U.
They do a great job. That will wrap it up for this week's show, Locker Talk Live. Be sure to join us every single week for our hour-long show. We have coach guests, analysis, everything. We recap state football. We talked to Stephen Peters today. We talked some basketball. We talked to head coach David Martinez. We'll chop up these interviews, put them on our site, Vype.com, later in the week.
Check it out.
Be sure to check it out. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all our social media. Vype Texas on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all of it. We'll see you next week. Josh Cook, Scotty T, live.
We'll see you at the games.